Shortly before COVID, I was actually living in Northern California up in Humboldt County by like the Redwoods. And the reason I bring that up is because one of my favorite hobbies is hiking. And I used to do that all the time before I got COVID. California, we have so many beautiful mountains and forests. So that was a really
Hello. So, hello and welcome to Talk with Sana. And after a
thank
long
you.
hiatus, I'm back, with a book chat, and I have lovely Salam with me. And she has recently written a book about long COVID, and it's called COVID Long Haulers. And let me introduce you before, I will let her speak, and I have a short bio from her. So here it goes. Salam Kabbani is an infectious diseases pharmacy specialist in Kansas. Despite having been fully vaccinated, she got COVID in 2021, which led to a serious bout with long COVID. She wanted to raise awareness about the disease and went on to publish her memoir, COVID Long Hauler, My Life Since COVID, and is working diligently to be a patient advocate. So, welcome, Salam. So, really, I'm
Thank you
thankful
so much.
that we are doing this and for your time as well. I know the importance of time and, the energy that you try to do everything in that time when you feel okay.
Likewise. Thank you for hosting me.
Salam, can you tell more about yourself a little bit, like where you come from, what you did, how was life before COVID, the person that you were and, you still search
Yeah.
for that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. So, in a nutshell, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Shortly before COVID, I was actually living in Northern California up in Humboldt County by like the Redwoods. And the reason I bring that up is because one of my favorite hobbies is hiking. And I used to do that all the time before I got COVID. California, we have so many beautiful mountains and forests. So that was a really big deal. I am a pharmacy specialist. And so, work in hospitals. I also worked in retail for a while. And then, unfortunately, in the end of August of 2021, I ended up with a breakthrough Delta infection. As I'm sure everyone listening remembers, Delta was pretty nasty and tough on everyone who got it. And so after that, I was initially out of work for about a 40-day stretch, just kind of lying in bed or on the couch, so many symptoms, so much fatigue. And then I went back to work thinking I was doing okay. And at the time, I didn't even know that there was something called long COVID. I think it was like, even in the medical field, it was just being introduced. But I noticed that like I was having a lot of dizzy spells, would just get so tired, really bad brain fog. So about a month later, after going back to work, my physician recognized that I had long COVID and I actually went on disability very end of November and until middle of August of this year. So it's been quite the journey. But to go back to your question, hiking was honestly like the main thing that I did. And it was really challenging because as you know, when you have long COVID, you barely have energy to even walk. For me, to complicate things, I had pleuritis for a few months. So like I was just always having this air hunger and shortness of breath. So it was really challenging because what I wanted to do to feel good and to help my mental health, I couldn't because I could barely get out of bed. So it's been quite the journey, but I'm happy to say that I'm doing so much better now. I am back to work. I even moved across the country, for this job, and I'm doing much, much better overall.
I'm so happy to hear that, it's
Thank you.
really, that and yeah, I have one question. When I was reading your book, I had a
Yeah.
feeling that you really wrote it when you were going through all those things, right?
Good. Yes. Yeah.
Because
I
the
even
emotions
mentioned
were
like,
so present in the raw form, it really touched me like that. And I was like, she didn't write it afterwards, because I could really feel the thrust of the emotions. And I was like, okay, I will ask her, did she really write, on those maybe tired days and what was going through her, all that tests and I don't know, so many diagnoses, so many misdiagnoses, so many things going on and off.
Yes, I did. The idea kind of came to me in January of 2022, and then February was just, I mean, as you read in the book, was just a very challenging month physically. So I kind of stopped doing anything really. But towards March, that's when like all those tests were happening and everything. I was just very sick of feeling like I was going through this alone. At the time, I did not know how vast of a long COVID community there was. So I decided to write it partly because it was cathartic and also because I wanted to really raise awareness. So that's when I think March was when I did like the majority of the writing. And that was actually, still one of the heavier months. So yes, it was while I was sick. And sometimes I'd have to put it down just because the brain fog would intensify. And, as I'm sure you know, or I'd have some like light sensitivity to the monitor screen. But I was able to pick it up, and there were maybe a few bits and pieces that I added on towards the end, but I would say at least 95% was during.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you were able to pick that up. That makes me happy.
No, I was like, oh, it's no way, written afterwards with that much intensity. So I could feel
Yeah.
that. And the
Yeah.
book came to me at the right time. So I was talking to Janan one of the days and I told her I'm having long COVID, and she told me about you writing this book. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I can't wait, till it got
Yeah.
published. And I have to read this book. And I could identify so many things. And I was like, thank you, Salam, for writing it. Because
Oh, you're welcome.
it's not easy to tell people what you're feeling with the brain fog. It's like energy crisis in the body. You don't have words. And it's not real to people. It's like they cannot really imagine what you are going through inside your body. And you can't
Yeah.
tell them, what's happening to me, and I don't have energy, and I'm just not lazy, I'm not making excuses.
Yeah. No, I've heard clinicians like in the field of infectious disease say that like until they saw me, needing to use a cane, they thought that COVID was, or long COVID, excuse me, was something that people made up to like not go back to work.
Mm.
And that was really it was a very intense statement to make, but if someone in that field is feeling that way, that just really goes to strengthen what you're saying about how a lot of people just like don't really get it or don't understand what it is.
And especially with the pots, it's really like, ooh. So you don't know where your heartbeat will go in the next 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I would ask, like, who would you recommend your book reading to? So it's definitely for people who are going to long COVID. And who
Yes.
else do you
Yeah, and
recommend it to?
I really want to point out, and this is my book, I really want to point out that it's not like a medical book. It's not something that is going to give people advice on what to take. It's really just my memoir. My hope for the long COVID community is just to find a little comfort and solace in knowing that they're not alone. But outside of that, I think that really anyone who's been impacted by COVID or knows someone who has long COVID, I think this can provide a lot of empathy and understanding, and even just understanding, why maybe your friend that used to never cancel appointment now seems flaky. Maybe it's not that he or she is flaky or it's simply that they have POTS and all of a sudden they woke up and their blood pressure just dropped or their heart rate is skyrocketing. Not everyone is comfortable being that open about their health condition. So I think this can provide a lot of understanding for the general public, and definitely for healthcare practitioners who are involved with those patients. I think it can really paint a picture of what at-home life looks like, especially because so many of us, when we're having that very intense brain fog, words are evading us and we may just like not even have the energy to convey what's going on to the provider. So that can make the diagnosis extra challenging, in my opinion. So I think really anyone should read this, but
Yeah, I think I
especially,
would definitely recommend to healthcare providers, you
yes,
know, especially like some of my friends who are going through long COVID, they recognize the symptoms in me. I was like, first time I fell down, I passed out and I had no idea. I thought, oh, maybe I was just not careful while walking or something happened. But my friend was very, like, she was cautious and she was like, Sana, you should check your heartbeats. And she told me how to check everything. And I did check. And yeah, my heartbeat was very irregular. while standing and lying down. And I went with all those readings to my doctor. So, no, it has to be more than this, to be POTS and this and that. And then they did some heart test on me and heartbeats and all. And then they find out there's nothing wrong with me.
Hmm.
And then I was like, okay, they really need to upgrade their knowledge and see what's happening. There's
Yeah.
something called long COVID and people are still suffering, and there has to be, a helpline or something. At least acknowledge. You can't do for anything for me. Just say, okay, I understand, something is going on in your body. And
Yes.
yeah, so I wasn't diagnosed. I am still not diagnosed. So I'm just on my own. I just, take care of what I can.
I'm so
But
sorry. That's
yeah,
really
and I,
challenging.
I would really recommend this book to the doctors, especially physicians, because the first
Yeah.
point of contact is the physicians that you go to. And then they say,
Yes.
oh, you're fine, perfectly okay.
Yeah. Like,
I
no,
was like,
I
no.
passed out. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was like, in the face, I felt like, oh, yeah, somebody's not ready to acknowledge that what you're feeling. And then they are the first point of contact before they could recommend you to anywhere else. So I would definitely recommend your book to all the healthcare providers, physicians, that,
Yeah.
it's something real and it happens. And just at least read that book to understand, how a person is feeling at that moment. Even when you can't do
Yeah.
anything, just,
Yeah. Just
accept that,
acknowledge,
okay, I
don't,
don't know what's happening to you, but I know that you're going through something.
yeah, like don't gaslight your patient.
Yeah. Because I know they're rushing to go from, and then telling me, like one of the doctors told me, oh, that he or she got COVID 6 times already.
Wow.
So, and I'm like,
Really?
okay, I think they're also suffering. They need to go to the therapist as well.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, what are you telling me? It's like, oh, you got 1 time, and I got 6 times. Every time it was a wave, and I had a COVID, and I'm back to work, and I'm also tired. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, they definitely, all doctors and healthcare providers, they also need, break. And with all this COVID thing,
Yeah,
there's a lot for them as well. Yeah.
yeah, burnout is real.
Yeah, burnout is definitely real. And then I saw, okay, I was complaining to my doctor, and then I saw it was coming back to me, and I like tiptoed back, out of our office.
Oh gosh, that should
Oh
not have
gosh.
happened. I'm so sorry that was your experience.
No, I'm like, you see how much people are impacted. Even the doctors who are there, they're not spared from it. They might not know what they're going through because they're too much busy into the life of checking patients.
Yeah,
But unless they're having a burnout, maybe after a few months or something, I don't know.
yeah,
So yeah, I think we have to all study and learn about it and see, what best we can do to make each other comfortable and, be
I
the
agree.
best we can. And
I
I have
agree.
another question for you.
Yeah,
Like, like I really read the book and I understood, like, what you were going through and the journey,
yes,
and also the positive lessons. I really wanted to, I see that it really grounded you, the book, even for the people who go through the dark times. And as a normal person, when we are okay, we can't really understand them, right? Like
yeah,
quadriplegics and all those people. And and then, sometimes you come really go towards the shore and you get a touch of how much people can be suffering and what going through all the dark things in their mind, and you become more humble, right?
yeah, absolutely. I tell this to my mom all the time. As much as I hope to never go through some of those more challenging pieces again, I'm very grateful that it happened to me because I have tapped into so much empathy that I didn't even know I was capable of having before. Like I do mention about how, with quadriplegics, and I'm not saying, I'm not providing my opinion. I'm simply
No,
stating I
yeah.
knew that some of those patients opt for assisted euthanasia, and I can understand that now because for me, the days where I wasn't able to get out of bed, where I needed a wheelchair, it is so hard to rely on someone else for everything. It's hard emotionally, it's hard physically, and for people who literally cannot do anything for themselves year after year. I mean, I don't that's just very challenging. In any disability, it's very challenging. And so it's given me a very broad perspective, and it's also provided me with this opportunity to really go out of my way and hopefully advocate for long COVID patients, especially, but also anyone with a disability. One specific example is I actually signed up for a course for American Sign Language, and I start that tomorrow because we have here in the greater Kansas City, Kansas area, we have a very large deaf population. And so sometimes, like when I'm rounding on my patients, if the interpreter is tied up with another patient, then we have no way of communicating with them. And I'm not, comparing my disability in any way to having a complete sensory loss, but just having a smidge of that, disability, I really understand how challenging it is. And to just feel like, wow, my doctor or my pharmacist or my nurse, like, can't even communicate with me, that's just a whole different level. So I'm just over here trying to do whatever I can to make it just a little bit easier for them. So I'm really grateful that I went through all that I did because I think it's just made me a more humble person. Like, I truly understand the fragility of life now. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for saying that
Yeah.
so beautifully, and what you plan to do. And may Allah put a lot of success and barakah in, and
Thank you.
health, that's all the
Yes,
energy that
yes,
we are
all of
missing at
us.
the moment. And also,
Yes.
Salam, can you tell your handles, how people can reach to you, like your
Yes,
IG handles
absolutely.
and the page and all, so people can follow you?
Yes. So if anyone wants to email me, it's Salam, SALAM, at authorsalam.com. And then with regard, so I am on LinkedIn, it's just Salam Kabbani, and you can see it'll say like infectious diseases pharmacy specialist. I'm also on Instagram. I have my book page, which is at the unabridged life of Salamasita, and we can, put that in the comment section. It is a mouthful. I also have my long COVID page at Long Hauler Chronicles. And then my website, you can simply go to authorsalam.com or just salamkabani.com, and it'll reroute you. So I am on TikTok, but I will say I
I
am
figured
still
out TikTok is not for me.
yeah, I am a millennial, so I think it's much more like Gen Z is really crushing it on TikTok, not so much millennials. So
For me, it was like, okay, I'm an old timer, so
yes.
I better get off TikTok.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So
and
that was
I love
really,
hearing people's
great
stories.
talking to you. And I know how, like we are really working on to the energy times
Yes.
of the day when it's better, and try to do all the things. I won't take much of your time, Salam, but really I'm grateful that we were able to talk through. I was really looking forward to talk to you, and I had some questions in my mind that you answered. And I will, put up the links for your handles. You can send me also on that page. And then maybe
Yes.
we'll have another chat later, if I have more questions. Sure. And I wish
Yeah,
you all
I'd
the
be
best,
honored.
in your journey, and take care, and more healing and more power and more strength to whatever you're doing.
Thank
Take
you. Thank
care.
you so much for having me on your show.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.